Welcome to the Mental Health Bootcamp Podcast.
Woo!
This is the podcast where 3 Canadians and 1 American, all psychotherapists, serve you cutting-edge mental health knowledge. I am Ryan Howes from the smoky state of California.
I'm Chris Boyd, outside of Vancouver in Coquitlam.
I'm Brooke Lewis from Vancouver, Canada.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, younger sister to Chris Boyd, and I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Woohoo! Welcome, you guys.
Thank
I think
you.
we all have kind of a smoke problem these days, don't we?
Yes. Vancouver hasn't had enough rain to wash away the smoke. So we have some wafting smoke up from Washington, and there's a few fires up here in BC as well.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yeah.
yes, that time of year, it seems to be pretty strong this year. Kind of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But we will make it through, and our warm wishes to anyone who has lost a home or property during this time. There's been a lot of destruction in California and Oregon, I know, and that's scary, dangerous time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have something fun to share with you guys.
Let's hear it.
We want to know.
A fun little kind of COVID era adventure I took this weekend. You ready for this?
Ready.
I went to a drive-in movie this weekend.
Oh, those are fun.
Yes, it was actually a lot of fun. I think I'd been once in my life when I was a very little kid, hardly remember it. But it's pretty popular these days since movie theaters are closed, and it's a very safe way to watch a movie. And there's a place not too far from here where they had 4 screens going at the same time. So it's a very large place. There were like probably 50 cars in there in each one of the little theater areas, the lots.
Whoa.
And it was really a lot of fun. We got some sandwiches and just sat in the car and watched the film. It was really cool.
That's great. Which film did you watch?
Bill and Ted's 3. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have one more of those up here. Well, in our area anyways, and it's just the one big screen. And yeah, you don't have multiple screens. That's all you get. But they usually play maybe 3 a night. So if you start, you could be there till like 3 a.m.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Did you have a nice setup with snacks and blankets and pillows?
Well, we had the snacks for sure. And we brought all the sweets and everything, all the popcorn stuff. We're big Red Vines and Skittles and that sort of stuff for the movie time. That's important. And yeah, it was super hot this weekend, so no one was really we're allowed to get out of the car, actually. Kind of had to stay in the car unless you're going to the bathroom or the awkward concession stand.
Okay.
But we just kind of hung out, watched the film, and it was really neat. And I don't know if you've been, have you been to yours, Joanna?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do they do the thing where the cars actually park on an upslope?
Yeah, it's just a very slight,
Yeah.
Each section has just a slight bump, but it's very gradual.
That's so cool. It's nice. You just point the car right at the screen. It's kind of fun.
Well, that's great.
That was my adventure.
That's awesome.
A nice summer thing to do.
It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
What have you guys been up to? Anything fancy?
Joanna and I were up at our cabin there a few hours away. I entered a dance off with my little nephew. So I lost by 1 vote. I sang or danced to Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go Go.
Mm-hmm.
Some tight and bright clothing. So it was a close battle, but he beat me by 1.
Yeah, it was a very, very hard decision.
So I had to jump in the lake as a result, but it was.
Oh.
He beat me with the ground moves. He was like breakdancing and stuff like that. And I'm more like arms and a bit of a different style, I guess. But
Does he do the same song or does he do a different song?
he got to pick his own song. It's from Marshmello.
Okay.
I didn't know Marshmellos could create music, but
Oh man.
But it was a close one, though. It was probably there's a bunch of people watching. And so I think losing by one vote is kind of a win for me, too,
Yeah.
Almost had him. But
and he kind of decided to jump in the lake with you there. It's just
he
supposed to
did.
be the loser, but he, I think, ran in there first.
That's right. Yeah.
Good sportsmanship.
Yeah. Good sportsmanship for sure. Yeah.
That sounds like fun. Is that kind of a tradition you guys have up there, or did you just set this up?
No, it was more, well, I challenged my other nephew to a Minecraft off last month.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I got slaughtered in that one. But yeah, so just trying to have these fun little battles with my nephews and nieces.
Wow. Sounds like you just really want to jump in the lake, so you just find reasons to do so, right?
It is so refreshing, It's so nice to get in there.
It sounds really like a lot of fun. That's cool. Anything else, Brooke? Anything new with you?
Not really. No. I was hanging out at my home for the long weekend and did some social distance visits and tried to bake some new things. That was fun. So I made pizza dough and galette. That was the other thing. Do you know what that is, Ryan?
I have no idea.
Apple. I don't know if I'm saying it properly. So it's kind of like a lazy pie. So you make pie dough when you roll it out and then you put whatever your filling is. So I did apples. So it's just like apples and sugar and some cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
And pile it in the middle and then you just fold up the sides of the dough. So there's no like pie pan or anything like that. You just kind of fold it all up and stick it in the oven. So tried to make that. And
it's like a calzone. It's like a calzone version of pie.
But a little open. It's open in the middle. So you like fold the edges up so the apples are still exposed, but it's kind of still more folded than a pie would be, but there's no top crust. I don't know if I'm making
How was it?
It was pretty good. I had a little bit of a leakage. Like, so when I took it out of the oven, I was like, oh no, like all the delicious apple juice, like the yummy caramelized stuff had escaped through part of the pie crust and was made like a real mess on the cookie sheet, but that's okay. The house smelled amazing.
Yum.
Sounds yummy.
Yeah, so doing that. And then I have book club this weekend. So we've been reading My Brilliant Friend, which is a novel. Yeah, so been doing that.
Do you recommend it?
So far it's really good. I'm listening to it on an audiobook. And my friend Tracy, who's in book club, she makes a good point. Books are written to be read. So when you listen to an audiobook, sometimes you don't get the same experience because they were written to be read, not to be heard.
Interesting.
And so I chose to listen to this one on audiobook because I had some extra credits and whatnot, but I would agree. Like, I feel if I read this book, I would enjoy it more than listening to it, but I would still give it a 7.5. Don't tell Tracy that. Tracy, stop listening.
That's a really interesting point. As I've never heard that before. That books are meant to be read or written to be read as opposed to read aloud or heard.
That is interesting. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a writer ever say, "Well, I'm gonna do some writing here, and doggone it, it's gonna be read. No one's gonna read this book to anyone." I don't know that's a conscious thought for the writer, but there is something to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grade 2 teacher was full of it, I guess, reading those stories on the carpet there, the mat.
Yes, exactly. I can imagine Dr. Seuss is like, "What the hell are you doing?
Why are you reading this out loud?" That's a good point. Yeah, the younger books.
Dr. Seuss is like, "I can't believe Green Eggs and Ham was meant to be read, not spoken." Oh, I don't know. That's a really interesting thought.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. So I do think any books that I've read, I've enjoyed more than if I've listened to them.
I agree. I find I enjoy reading books more, and I also think I'm able to pay attention more. I think sometimes if people are listening, or if I'm listening, even driving, I'm also paying attention to something else at the same time. So I find and if I space out while reading, I'm like, what did I just read? So I'll go back, versus I don't tend to anyways, that's just me. But I think both have their pros.
I'll add another one though to that, which is, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm a very slow reader. I'm a very thorough reader. I absorb it all, but I'm terribly slow. A novel, nonfiction, doesn't matter. If I'm reading a book, it takes me forever. I got into doing the audiobooks a couple years ago, and I've just been like consuming them. Like
I think that's like Chris.
2 books a week.
Chris is like that too.
And just love it. I am just so enjoying it. I'm going back to all those books I was assigned in high school and college and never read, and I'm rereading those or reading those for the first time, listening to those for the first time, and it's been just a delight. So
you run too, Ryan, right? So
yeah,
listen to as you run. Or...
I run, and back when I would drive somewhere, I would listen while I was driving, and just had a great time doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And sometimes you get the author that reads the book to you.
Yeah,
I think I just retain it better when it's being read versus reading it myself. But anyways, yeah, interesting the different preferences there.
It is. So, guys, we need to get on track here. We've got a brand new ambush coming. The ambush is when one of us comes up with a topic, keeps it a mystery from the other 3, and then springs it on us in the middle of our podcast, and we have to respond. We don't know what it's going to be, but that's okay. We come prepared in other ways, and we just hope we can respond to the topic. And I think tonight is Chris.
All right, here it comes. Ready? Drum roll.
Drum roll.
It is scent.
Okay, here's a good one. Let's talk mindfulness. What is it? Does it live up to the hype? And what mindfulness techniques or approaches do you use with your clients? Mindfulness, everyone. The topic of the 2000s.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a hot word these days, isn't it?
Certainly is. What is it? And does it live up to the hype? We'll start with that. So mindfulness, I'll try to take a stab at a explanation of that. On the simplest level, mindfulness is awareness. It's being aware of thoughts, feelings, behaviors that you're having, that you yourself are experiencing, and viewing those, observing those without judgment. It's saying, here's the state of being right now. Here's where I am. My thoughts are racing, and that's okay. I'm not going to judge that. My body is stiff or sore or anxious or jittery. That's where I am, and that's okay. My feelings are happy, sad, angry, whatever it might be, and just experiencing that. That's kind of the most basic way I think of mindfulness. Do you guys have anything to add?
I don't. That's pretty much the definition I provide too for clients. Sometimes I use the word intentional in there, so the intentional focus of your awareness without judgment, I think, is the key piece there. So, Joanna, do you use anything different?
No, I think that it's, just being in the moment, tailoring to the senses, what's happening in your body and thoughts. But yeah, the non-judgment and the not interpreting it, just noticing it. You're just kind of a witness. That's kind of how I would relate it as well. And I think about, when I think mindfulness, I think like connecting to the present moment. So that could be breathing, guided imagery, things like that.
That's the interesting thing about mindfulness is its application is kind of endless. It's sort of whatever you're doing is something you could be doing mindfully. You can, there's a lot of talk about mindful eating and, mindful exercise, and certainly, how would you contrast it for those of you who are experts in this? How would you contrast it with meditation? Because a lot of times people see them as one and the same. And they sometimes are. There's mindful meditation. So is there a difference, or what do you think?
Christopher?
I see it as one and the same. It's a form of meditation that's focused more, as you mentioned, on the present moment. But that's my interpretation of it. But
some people look at meditation as a way to to kind of do the opposite though, kind of let go of thoughts and go into a place of nothingness and emptiness. So, I mean, what do you think about that as kind of a different stance of meditation?
I agree. Yeah. And there's also visualizations that go with that. Sometimes I feel like more with meditations than mindfulness. So I feel like for a mindful meditation might be something more like a body scan, the tense release, noticing where am I holding tension in, moving up from your toes all the way up to your head. But a meditation for me would be more a visualization. So calm place or wiser self or mountain, like a mountain one where you visualize yourself becoming a mountain and then embodying all the strength. But when you're doing that, you are focusing your attention, but you're not focusing within or on the senses or the current moment. You're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Ryan, that meditation is still beneficial, but different from mindfulness.
Yeah.
And mindfulness can be meditative. And I'm sure some meditations can be mindful, but they're not always the same.
I find sometimes too clients think that the point of mindfulness or meditation is always not having thoughts, right? It's having that clear mind. And I believe maybe you can get to that meditative state, but I think it takes a lot of maybe some good training or persistence to get there, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's something I point out in my intro for mindfulness is that there is a huge myth out there that to be mindful means that you're feeling positive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true. Being mindful is that you are aware of your current state without judgment. So if you're experiencing anxiety, if your tummy is twisting and your chest is tight and you notice that and say, I'm anxious right now. You do that without judgment and it's okay. Like you said, Brian, I'm anxious right now. That's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden you feel better or positive. You're just in a state where you're aware of it and you'll accept it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Quick call back to episode 5, Optimism and COVID-19, where we talked about toxic positivity. Remember that? And how sometimes it's not so helpful to just be trying to push everything into the positive. Sometimes we need to feel the deeper, darker feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, is it worth the hype? Is the second part of the question, right? Does it stand up? Does it actually help people, or is it just kind of a nice new-agey psychobabble buzzword?
The reason why I asked that question is it is a buzzword, and a lot of people hear that term, and it can mean so many different things for different people, and it's been conceptualized in so many different ways. So I often hear that, oh, it doesn't work for me, or it's too challenging for me, or I don't really get it, right? There's a lack of clarity in terms of what the process looks like. I do feel that it does live up to the hype in terms of, I think there's research there to kind of back that. For me personally, when I was reading Eckhart Tolle's book, Power of Now, and in there he suggested that 80 to 90% of our thoughts are repetitive, useless, and negative. And when I read that, I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? Like, how would I know what I'm thinking if I'm my thoughts? But then I realized, no, of course, we have this deeper part of our mind where we can catch ourselves thinking a certain way. So I tried to observe my thoughts from that deeper place. And I was actually kind of blown away by how negative those thoughts can be, right? So I know with my journey implementing mindfulness into my life, it's been very, very impactful in so many different ways, right? There's definitely still moments where, I take the bait and I start to fixate and ruminate and all over the map. And I catch myself. I'm like, darn, that's it. That happened again. So being aware of those patterns and habits is liberating in so many different ways, I feel. But.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting with mindfulness. I think the hype is there for a reason. I think it became a thing. I think there's so much more that we have to learn, especially in our Western cultures. We're just new at this, really. It hasn't been in our culture for very long. We're not experts at it, but we're trying to work on it. And, but I feel like mindfulness is great because if you're not paying attention to the signals your emotions, your physical body, your thought patterns, they just get louder.
Yeah.
And they're going to get louder and bigger until you start paying attention to them. So the more that you avoid it or you're not mindful of it, the harder it becomes, right? So I think mindfulness is a great way to befriend the discomfort in a way, to embrace it.
And yeah, I think it's so encouraging to talk to people about that, because I think so many of us, and I'm guilty of it, sometimes it is really hard to just sit and be observant. And for many people, whether there's anxiety or just a lot of stress, or there's a lot of discomfort with just observing, and there's so much judgment and try to interpret things for people. So I think it's not easy, and I can see how people would be like, I don't want to do that. But I think that's just their coping kind of kicking in, or busyness or whatever.
Or they're bombarded by these thoughts, right? Or sensations and feelings, and it's tough to observe it non-judgmentally when feels like you're spiraling and out of control, right? So I can understand why people feel that it's not the best fit for them at times, but maybe I guess we'll get to that here in terms of techniques and strategies that may help people out, of course. But
I'll just piggyback on that a little bit, and I think of the way that I tend to look at it is, you guys familiar with the terms ego dystonic and ego syntonic? It's
I am, but I think you should explain it for our listeners.
I definitely will explain it for listeners. I just want to know if I need to explain it to you too. But so the idea that I am my problem, like it is me, is saying the fancy term ego syntonic. It's like sensitized. It's synthesized with my ego, with who I am. Whereas ego dystonic would be saying I am a self, I'm a person, but I deal with this thing that's kind of external to me, right? So the thing I love about mindfulness is through this exercise of being non-judgmental and just observing, you're able to say, okay, I'm here and I'm noticing, oh, I'm also feeling some anxiety. It's not I am my anxiety or I am consumed with my anxiety. I actually have a self that's kind of in the core here, and I'm noticing that anxiety is joining me right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really helpful for folks, because it really gives them a space to kind of carve out that they know I am not aligned completely with my problems. You know, this is a problem that's happening to me. It's not me.
Yeah, it's like that lower part of yourself, that maybe that sense of tranquility there, where you're observing all these things happening, right? Because keep in mind, if you're watching a great hockey game, you're watching David Kessler go down and score some goals.
Please.
You might be in the moment, you might be in the zone. Like you might not be having thoughts in your mind, but you're still yourself, right? So thoughts and cognitions is one part of the human experience. They're coming into your consciousness, but it doesn't define you, it doesn't dictate who you are. And same with emotions and feelings too, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it can be very liberating for people once they kind of wrap their heads around it, that these are patterns and habits based on, in the boot camp, we talk about biology and genetics and temperament experiences. Like there's a reason why these patterns are there, but it doesn't, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to take the bait. It doesn't have to define you, right?
Sometimes I like to use metaphors a lot. So sometimes a metaphor that I use sort of in this realm is saying, if there's a tornado, you want to be a mountain in the tornado. You don't want to be a patio chair, like a lawn chair. The lawn chair, right? Like, and the tornado is just your thoughts and your feelings and everything that's coming with it. It's the chaos, that inner turmoil chaos. You don't want to be the lawn chair. We want to help you be the mountain.
Or that odd cow that's going in the movie Twister. No,
you might be the odd cow. We don't want you to be the odd cow.
Yeah. But there's also like, there is neuroscience, there's research to back it, right?
Oh, tons.
So it builds the connective fibers of the prefrontal cortex. That part of the brain helps with emotion regulation, body regulation, fear extinction, intuition, empathy, morality, like a long list of benefits. Helps us sharpen our focus a bit more. So I think we have a long ways to go in terms of the benefits of it. And it's been around for thousands of years, but as Brooke was mentioning, it's pretty new to us. Like, who would you say? John Kabat-Zinn was probably kind of brought it over here a bit to more Western culture.
And that was, 20 years ago?
Yeah. Or at least made it popular over here, but
yeah. Marsha Linehan claims that she was the first. Marsha Linehan, for those who are listening, is the developer of dialectical behavior therapy, which is quite popular for emotional regulation and distress tolerance and working with borderline personality disorder. So she claims to be the first person to incorporate mindfulness as part of a therapy, a psychotherapy. So not claiming she brought it here. She says that like Cabot's in and there's been others, but she's the first that's taken it into a therapeutic context. And DBT was not formed long ago, right? So there's so much we're all so new.
Yeah,
it's true.
Very true.
So should we get to some practical applications of this? How do you actually use it in a clinical setting? But I want to preface this for a second by saying, when I was learning mindfulness a few years ago, I think I was talking with my wife about it, kind of explaining some things, and one of my kids, and he was in first grade at the time, said, "Oh yeah, I know all about mindfulness. We do that in school." So it's observing your thoughts and behaviors without having any judgment. Like, yeah, we do it all the time. It's like not a big deal, right? So it's like, what? My 6-year-old knows this stuff better than I do. It was kind of cool. But that's, I think it's a really nice thing too. This is a a public school teaching first graders how kind of the building blocks, the basics of this, as a way to help them ground themselves kind of for the rest of their lives. So it's kind of a nice idea.
I have a story about a technique as well. So I was at the Psychotherapy Networker conference symposium there in DC, where we all met, and I took one of the mindfulness courses. I don't even know how many years ago that was. It might have been 9-10 years ago now, and they were going over mindful eating. So with mindful eating, you focus on each of the senses. And so we were mindfully eating raisins. There was probably 300 people in this seminar, and we're all in this conference hall, and everyone has 2 raisins. So first you have to look at the raisin in as much detail as you can, then feel the raisin, notice all the little ridges and whatnot, and then you smell the raisin, and then you put the raisin in your mouth, but you don't chew it, and you roll it around, and then you take one bite and you notice. And so every step of the way you use each sense and notice. So it probably took 2 minutes to eat 1 or 2 raisins, which is a very long time. And then the facilitator said, "Hey, does anyone want to share their experience?" And this fellow in the middle of the room, middle-aged fellow, puts his hand up, says, "Yeah, I've been eating raisins my whole life, and I just realized I hate raisins." And I just thought that was so perfect. So his whole life, it's just been this like mindless, I'm putting raisins in my mouth and eating them.
Don't like the taste of it, yeah.
I love it.
He didn't actually even like raisins. He had no idea because he had never paid attention to it. And I just thought that was brilliant. So I let clients know that story in my experience. And I do ask them, like, are there things you think you're doing mindlessly that maybe you don't even like? Like, do you even like these things, right? So.
That's great.
I mean, you'd totally expect someone to be like, "I've never had such a mystical experience with a raisin before," This guy's like, "Nope, just realized I hate him."
Not for me.
Middle-aged adult man eating them whole life. Nope, don't like them. Don't like raisins. Never knew.
I really love that. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
now I want a raisin.
Yes, what approaches and techniques? Brooke, earlier you kind of zipped through, I guess they were more meditative things like the mountain and a few other things that you talk to people about. I'm just curious what sort of things you guys use.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go Joe.
I'll just give you a quick break here, Brooke. I think a simple one I might talk with clients as a basic mindfulness meditation would be just sitting quietly in a space if you can. I know that's harder to do these days when we're more inside. Could be inside, outside, and just focusing just on your natural breath. It doesn't need to be deep breathing, but just focusing on your breaths in and out, and then just allowing thoughts to come and go. And this is where the whole non-judgment comes in. You're just going to allow them to come, notice it, and then return to your breath, like return your focus to the breath. And it's kind of just simply that. So normalizing the fact that your thoughts are going to come in, but you're just noticing them, and then just returning to your breath. And then so just kind of something simple, but Yeah, that's one thing. And I have another one, but I can share that after.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, Joe, and I learned that one too. And it makes sense because you should always be breathing, so it's always kind of there with you. And the nostrils or lung or chest or stomach. And I remember the first time I heard that, I think I was able to focus my mind for 1.2 seconds when a thought popped in my mind. Am I doing this right? What am I going to have for lunch today? I'm like, oh,
yeah,
oops.
I'm hungry.
It's great. I think for me, a lot of people focus inward, but I like focusing outward on the senses. So the outer world. So Dan Siegel once said that washing the dishes is his favorite mindful thing to do. And I thought the man was crazy. Then I started washing the dishes more, at family dinners and gatherings and stuff. And I think it's easier to focus your mind when you're actually physically doing something, right? So obviously when you're washing the dishes, the temperature of the water and the texture of the food or whatever it might be. But and also like going for walks. So you're feeling your feet on the ground, maybe focus all on the senses. So I'm going to focus on what I'm looking at right now, or what I'm hearing or smelling. And then a thought pops in or sensation, you notice it again, non-judgmentally with curiosity, then focus back on what I'm doing. So that's helped well for myself, as well as those ideas that seem to work quite well with clients.
That's great. I like to, when I'm working with clients, I like to sometimes show them how easy it is by just doing this in the here and now with us. Instead of making it homework, like, let's just do this together right now. And in fact, I'm going to invite you guys to do that together with me right now. Maybe the listeners as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be aware of drop our thoughts into our bodies and be aware of what kinds of physical sensations we might have, any tension we might have, anything we might be holding on to. And just accept that, acknowledge it without judgment. And then let's go to our thoughts and see what our mind is doing right now. Are we focused on what we're hearing right now and focused on this conversation? Are we kind of distracted thinking about something else? Doesn't matter. We can accept that, and that's fine. And let's just check in emotionally for a second and see how we're feeling. Is there any lingering mood or emotional state that's kind of playing in the background right now? Anxiety or anger or sadness, anything. Just be aware of that, acknowledge it, and accept it. That's where we are. And then let's recognize that even in this last minute of doing this, we've just given ourselves a gift of checking in and self-care. And that's where we are right now. So there we are. That was pretty easy, right?
I like that,
Ryan.
Thanks,
so
Ryan.
do you start off a lot of your sessions that way, just doing that internal check-in, or?
I'll do that myself personally, and
Yeah.
sometimes with clients, but sometimes it'll just come up as an example. They're like, "Oh, I've been so stressed out. What, have you ever tried mindfulness?" And that's something it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
But we just have to do it. You have to remember to do it. And now that I just did this simple one, and there, as we're talking about, there are many different ways to do it, but it's not that hard.
That was great. I feel like you have a very calming voice, Ryan. You're like the Morgan Freeman of podcasts. I was just, I was like, hey, where are my thoughts? I was just thinking, wow, I could have Ryan record some meditation exercises, mindfulness exercises, and I listen to them on a daily basis. It's great.
It was soothing. My goodness.
Yeah, very.
Oh, you guys are too kind. I don't know that I've ever been called the Morgan Freeman of mindfulness or anything.
Podcast, yeah, just so
podcast,
great.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So what other tips do we have? Anything else that you guys have tried before?
So I do all of those too, and then I do like to do scripts. So I have some scripts of like doing a body scan, which gets you in your body. I know some people prefer outward. Sometimes I do the senses as well. I also have Joanna and I share them. There's mindfulness cards, like a deck of cards with a bunch of different very short mindfulness techniques in there. of just trying to help build awareness. So whether it's looking at an object that's still and trying to be as still as that object, then you just take notice. Breath work is really big for mindfulness. And then Chris, it's echoed in my clients a little bit what you're saying about being out versus inwards. And clients, just a random tip for listeners, sometimes when you're paying attention to your breathing, it causes more distress. People, their breathing increases or becomes labored because they're focusing on it. In which case, if you're noticing that and it's distressing to you, then you can just focus on your breath as it goes in and out of your nostrils. So change your point of reference. Instead of noticing it in your chest or in your diaphragm, just notice it in your nose. And that can be helpful. But I also use the word, or just the phrase, what are you noticing right now? A lot in my therapy. What are you noticing right now? Oh, I noticed a shift in you. What do you notice in your emotions right now? What are you noticing in your thoughts, in your body? So I just continually ask those questions.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought about those cards, Brooke. I think there's another one, like listen to a favorite song of yours and try to just focus in on a specific instrument that's playing.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Or if, in a room in your house, go sit in a place you've never sat before and look around and see what you notice from that angle. Like go sit in a corner and notice and be mindful of what's around you or what it feels like to sit in that spot versus another one. Yeah, those cards are great.
Yeah.
It's cool. That's very cool.
Like look around and, name something of every, again, senses, but name something for every color of the rainbow.
Yep. So
like
we'll go through some in a session, and then we lay out, after we've done a card, I say, okay, did you like this or not? And then put that, if they say yes, then I put that in a separate pile. And then when we're done, I lay them out and they take pictures of them so they can practice them at home.
I do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to note that not, if you try an exercise, I would give it a decent go, not just a one-off, but you might find some certain exercises that work better than others, right? I remember someone in a team meeting at our practice said, like, some people love to knit, right? And that's something that's super relaxing for them, but then there's going to be other people who actually find it distressing, boring, awful. So just because it's relaxing for like me doesn't mean it's going to be the go-to thing for you. So I think be aware of that. If you have a friend who's like, oh man, I go for walks all the time and it's great, or I'd like to, wash dishes all the time. It might not be your thing, but it's worth a shot.
That's a good point. We actually recorded some mindfulness exercises for a boot camp, and the ones that Brooke and I recorded didn't make the cut. Like we actually had Ryan and his wife create those practices for our program. So, but the ones that Brooke and I created, I actually send out to clients in audio clips.
I do too.
It's so funny, personal preference. The odd time I'll have a client who says, you know what, I just cannot stand her voice. Like it's just, I can't stand it, right? So
thanks, Chris's client.
Yeah, personal preference, right? The spouses exercises out there, trying to find one that you like that fits well with you.
Yeah, one of my favorite personally is actually like nature, connecting with nature, being aware of sounds or just external, right? But I will also take my shoes off and stand in grass. I like to be in like touching grass. I don't know. Just, I find it really grounding, for lack of a better word. That was kind of punny, but.
Yeah, literally, you're grounding yourself.
Literally. Yeah, so one time in DC there, we're walking around sightseeing and Chris is like, where'd Brooke go? Look around, I'm like lying on a boulevard. I'm like, it's so nice.
On the grass. Wait, is the boulevard, for you guys, is that like the strip between lanes?
It can be, but it could also be like the space before a sidewalk in a building.
Oh, okay.
It's like a grassy area that could be called a boulevard.
Got it. For us, it's just a street. It's a type of street.
Oh.
So my office was on Colorado Boulevard. So just the street.
Yeah. We have some boulevards. What do you call the grassy area between the sidewalk and the building?
I don't know. The grassy area. We don't have a name for it, I don't think. But guys, we got to wrap up. I'm sorry to say. This has been mindfully wonderful. I've had a great time. Chris, do you have any final words for us?
Just be patient with it. Yeah, give it a go and be patient. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Be patient. Start it off, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, 5 minutes a day.
Okay, that's good. All right, guys. Check us out on the podcast.
www.mentalhealthbootcamp.com.
That's
find us on Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, good.
And tell a friend.
And tell a friend.
Your challenge for this week, find one person you think might benefit from this and let them know about the podcast.
And if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them, and we would consider the topics for future boot camps or podcasts. Sorry.
I love it. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Later.